Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the first webinar series of the CFO Academy. So just a little bit about the webinar series. Like I said, it's the first one of a series. The CFO Academy itself has been established for you, the finance professional, with a forum really to discuss best practices, solutions around corporate performance management, budgeting, forecasting, business intelligence. It builds on some recent seminars that we have and we plan to have as well, with a variety of different thought leaders contributing to that. We recently had Aubrey Joachim, for instance, who is an ex-Chartered Institute of Management Account. And like I said, those thought leaders will contribute to this. And slowly over time, we hope to move to more of a workshop format. So first of all, I just want to focus that the whole series is really focused on what the changing role of finance, what business leaders are expecting from finance in this current and new world. And it centers on this transformation of finance from being things like the steward and controller, the trusted reporter, the technical expert within the business, providing all the type of support that they need with very valid roles, but more really starting to actually play a role of business partner within the organization. Genuinely integrated to it, basically not just in an organizational way, but in a technology way. And really, that's happening all around us. I mean, you're probably engaged in activities around that very subjects yourself today, and you're aware of them. It's in every type of media that the CFO or someone from finance will do, is that move from a back office, head office role, basically to being integrated into the front line, outside our comfort zone. And we need things to support our credibility and objectivity in order to reach out there. And I don't see this really as just a move in terms of integrating to the front line from an organizational perspective. I think increasingly it's around technology. So it's within that context that the CFO Academy series was set up. We're going to cover a whole range of topics slowly over time. These are just the first 5, and the topics can change, obviously, depending on interest, and we will ask for your feedback on introducing new themes. Today really is about lessons from the field and what stops us rolling, forecasting, continuous planning. So let's talk about that topic. But we'll also have some best practices, some case studies. We'll reference effective methods. We'll show technology for going the journey towards that sort of goal of being a genuine integrated business partner. So again, the series itself is designed to help support the finance professional going that particular journey. Okay, this is a professional advantage corporate performance maturity model, which I will reference a lot in all the future sessions. Just for today, I'm not going to go through it into sort of detail, but the topics basically that we'll cover in this series will slowly cover different aspects of this, building up from moving from being unaware, for instance, and tactical around how you kind of plan and report basically through to your role as a strategic and pervasive source of financial information and decision support within your business. We'll reference the organizational cultural aspects, but also reference the technology aspects. And I think the thing that this maturity model recognizes is that really it's the blend of organizational culture and technology things that will provide you processes in order to enable that role. So first of all, I just want to cover some trends. Now this looks obvious diagram really. I mean, we all know basically that we plan, we monitor that plan, and we analyse why we sort of go outside the boundaries or what behaviours are going on, and that's very familiar territory to anyone really involved in finance. I think there are a couple of trends that are really important. First of all, it appears obvious, but basically strategy is the thing that really this all should be integrated to, and not in a decoupled way. Strategy doesn't happen in an ivory tower at a boardroom or senior management meeting. It's in a genuine integrated way. We start to plan our activity in an operational way and align that back to strategy. So the key thing there really is that the speed at which we need to do it. Previously, there was a lot of latency in this. We could do that plan like once a year, and we can analyse it slowly and adjust and refine. The speed and frequency at which we need to do that is the thing that's changing in this very new, rapidly changing world. Now, the key thing here, really, just to emphasise, it's not just the ability to plan, monitor, and analyse, but also to integrate, the actionable items as part of that as well. So that's often forgotten, is how do I integrate my plan, my monitoring, and my analysing with acting out and doing things about it at any stage during that cycle. Okay, so truly operational alignment back to strategy. The other two things that we need to take notice of is there is increasingly going to be a self-service culture where the business will really want to actually do any of these things at any point in time from any device. And really that this needs to be driven by the business, and IT play a role by all means. They provide governance over key aspects of our information architecture, but because this will be business division and on demand, then really that elevates the role of finance, I think, within the spectrum of the organisation in the future. Now, I don't know if there is still a discussion about the frequency of change. I just extracted this from Google. It's just the news from a couple of days ago, and I just looked at this list, and there is change everywhere. There's changes in weather patterns affecting construction delays on a project. There's obviously the consequences of the market movements that we've had, really, and the shifts in parity with the US dollar. We've got two-speed economy reference points, all sorts of things. If we don't think change is actually here and very present, it is the new normal. Change used to be an occurrence that basically happened in cycles. I think change is permanent now. So we need to really adjust the way we plan on that basis, and we need to move away from thinking about things like planning as an annual exercise or something basically driven by a reporting time frame or framework. So I want to get to the subject. Okay, so what stops us just getting there? Okay. Or should I frame that differently? What lessons can we learn from the field? And PA have had a lot of experience, basically, with a lot of different businesses, helping them along that maturity curve. Okay, what lessons do we actually observe, and how you could move forward? First of all, I think that the main thing is there's a lot of time basically spent in dealing with the reality, okay, in the front line, in the finance office. We often feel overwhelmed. If I go back to the maturity model, then really finance is often in that unaware to tactical mode. And it's dealing with things like, information anarchy. It's got very little participation. It's lost in lag reporting processes that sometimes considerably lengthy. I mean, we've seen organisations that take 4 or 5 months to do an annual budget, that take, over a month to actually do their typical financial-based reporting. So moving along the corporate maturity model is very hard, because basically finance is constantly sort of managing the process or controlling it. And it's focused on efficiency and not really effectiveness. So really there's a key bottleneck there, basically, that lots of people find it hard to overcome. I think that limits how the organisation perceives change can happen, and technology really doesn't support the ability to change either. I just want to give you an example of an organisation that you would probably see in that bucket, which is a city council in New South Wales. It's obviously multifaceted services, community-based, large infrastructure and assets to manage. An interesting thing around this organisation, and quite typically for a council, had very long just planning cycles. I mean, their annual budget would be started in something like October and run all the way through to March. Now, this is just a pictorial simplification of that process, and I won't go through all the steps. It's not necessary. And needless to say, there's a very long timeline. It's sequential in nature. It's actually lacking effective management because it's done purely on a financial basis, and finance is seen as a gatekeeper of control. Now, so to be able to, they're in that space that I'm talking about in terms of, from a maturity viewpoint, of being unaware or tactically focused. There was a passive awareness. Now, interestingly, the catalyst that basically changed here is really councils need to look at their long-term viability and sustainability. And they need to do that right the way from a 20-year community plan based on not just financial perspectives, but outcomes for their community, right the way through to delivery programs and operational plans. And that formed a new planning framework that basically is being imposed on councils. Now, needless to say, if you're in this state, then would you actually run at taking on initiatives like that, given that your annual budgeting cycle basically is, taking the order of 5 months? Or you'd possibly say, no, technology isn't going to support it. How is my organisation going to change? Yet, if we really look at what they've been able to achieve in a very short amount of time, like 2 or 3 months, they've now created a central integrated framework for their budgets, for operational plans, for delivery plans, both over the short to long-term rolling forecasts and what-if analysis. They've actually even gone further within that very short time frame. They've shortened a 5-month budgeting cycle to 1 month. In fact, the only limitation now is the formal council adoption of that plan. So the decision support for the senior executive is much, much higher. We've got active participation by all the budget stakeholders. We're planning things in model terms around the business drivers for asset services and even looking at new initiatives, all driven by initial parameters. So I think from a maturity viewpoint, they've actually come from that spot of being tactical and unaware, and they've moved to another level. And they've moved beyond the tactical to focused and starting to think about the strategic. And that's a huge move. Now, they needed technology to drive that. Now, obviously, there might be an organizational or cultural lag, but basically, technology is not the limiting factor. So I think the key learn there is I think you have to overcome the past and current inertia. Technology has changed the game, and it can significantly enhance your abilities to achieve a lot very quickly. And allow you to concentrate on, for instance, the change management perspectives, which the technology supports anyway. So just focusing on that, that's a key point. Along that line of technical maturity that the CFO needs to think about in terms of how to integrate planning within the business, okay, you need as few changes as possible. So you really do need to think longer term about your technology decisions. And actually think about that journey that you want to do basically as business partner. You want to be moving from, for instance, being seen as a control and gatekeeper right the way through to actually integrating the financial perspective with the operational and improving your processes. And the key here that technology is critical because basically it's about speed and it's about the speed at which you can report. That council, just like so many others, can now do rapid on-demand planning, like at any point in time. So basically they'll have major events such as a flood, and their ability to actually quickly determine what's necessary within that and how they should replan their resources and how that would affect long-term funding and sustainability is much more prevalent. It also, technology is required because participation is required. If you really want a participatory ownership culture, then they need to actually be part of that framework. Another observation is I constantly hear this, look, let's focus on the low-hanging fruit, the quick wins. In this maturity point down between, it's broken. So thinking of low-hanging fruit and refinements and efficiencies really is not recognizing the fact that you need a significant change. It's tweaking rather than actually thinking about real long-term change. It is broken. So if I look down here, if you're in the unaware and tactical space and you're trying to handle that without the relevant technology, then potentially you're going to just be spinning plates. You'll never move beyond that point. So the idea of quick wins within that environment isn't going to actually address the issue. Now, I can understand quick wins when you're actually in the focused and strategic because they're being done with a sense of prioritization. Which leads me to another observation. I think this works very, very well. Is if first of all build that vision. That vision should be built on your strategic objectives. In fact, the case for change is often found in the corporate vision and your strategic objectives. In the annual report, basically, the director's statements. That's what I found. And really, you should point your business case for improvement back to those sort of things, because that's what you're about. You're about delivering value, strategic benefits to the business, improving decision making, and not about refining reporting efficiencies in the back office. So with that vision in mind, you should start starting to look at all the different possibilities and build a roadmap and have an appropriate technology to support that engagement. And I find that nearly all the engagements, including the one I just referenced with the council, started with PA providing that within the business to help it along its way and shape the way that the CFO role has basically been viewed and supported within that organisation. So here, if you think about it, using that approach, we can go from a finance team that is unaware, focused on control, to tactical, managing the process, looking at efficiencies, from focused and forming business relationships, and focusing on that strategic, established relationships right the way through to a business-enabled, financially aware organisation where things like that are pervasive in terms of self-service. Again, all that is about maturing the role of finance as a business partner. Another observation that I think is often forgotten, it's a strange thing to say, that basically the rare winners of things like budgeting and forecasting solutions is the senior management, the CEO, and the business. They're often asked to contribute, but they get very little out of it, and they're not active users. We don't think about engaging what their particular needs are from this, in any more than, for instance, a report and a presentation. In all instances, we've actively challenged an organisation to think about this. That has changed the game in terms of the value actually delivered, in terms of the thoughts about the outputs, and moved it beyond, financial-based type planning, right the way through to value and strategic type planning. So even just asking that question within your change actually helps you address that issue. And this is a bit of a related point. You've got to think outputs for everyone. I've seen so many solutions where the output really is a financial statement or a series of financial statements and very little else. If you think about the amount of contextual information that you need to drive planning these days and its ability to surface insights and actually provide deeper outputs rather than those that are just around the budget, then there's a huge opportunity here, and we see a lot of maturity around that slowly happening within organisations. So basically, you're almost creating a honeypot for external users coming in and getting value out of it beyond the typical budget, beyond the typical plan. So, like I said, these are just some of the things that I see on a regular basis. So I'll just quickly cover them. So, get over that, overcoming that reality. I think that current inertia is often ingrained, and then maybe you've got prior history of failures within your organisation from a change management perspective. But I think we are at a different technology point within at this particular point in time. That's so relevant to a whole series of different issues for different roles within the organisation, but particularly for the CFO. Don't just focus on the low-hanging fruit if you've got significant issues. And then if you are going to change, move it beyond the efficiency discussion. Focus it on the vision and the strategic objectives that your business are actually trying to achieve. And finally, think about the CEO, think about the business as being winners. Actively provide something within the framework that basically adds a lot of value for them, and think outputs for everyone. So they're the topics that I covered today. I hope that was thought-provoking. Like I said, we've got future ones. In 2 weeks' time, I'm going to talk about the CFO, that role of the business partner, and how you can avoid losing sleep when your CEO says it's all changed. So how do we do that? In a few weeks' time, we'll actually have some solution moments where we'll actually cover specifically how applications deal with these things with a very hands-on session. So I hope that was rewarding. Just for your information, there's a few other things. If you want to have an ongoing discussion and join our community, we have a LinkedIn group called the CFO Academy Professional Advantage, which you are invited to, and I would encourage you to post your discussion points there. We will put this video or a copy of this within that environment for comment, and we've also got a suggestions and topic box there and on the registration page. I would deeply love to hear what you'd like to find out about within these sessions so that we can reflect that basically in our changing agenda. So we're always open to ideas. And also we will actually be actively looking for people to participate from the business community, from our own business community. So you will actually start to hear peer-to-peer type conversations as well. So do join us for those. If you want to know more now about Professional Advantage, the case studies, the solutions and technology, the methods that we use, then there's a phone number and an email address, and obviously you can go directly to that at any point in time. So thank you very much. How are we doing for time? I think we're okay. Just any questions I'll just cover at this particular point in time. No questions at this point. Okay, well, like I said, what we'll do is we'll try and make the format more of a participatory, discussionary one in future. But for now, that's the launch of the first seminar. So thank you very much, everyone.